Come on. There we go. All right, seeing this. We're already late at being late. I'll go ahead and get us started here. So, seeing the presence of a quorum, I call the Amherst Pelham Regional School Committee to order at 7:47 on Tuesday, May 24th. We'll start with a roll call vote. Sarah Bess.
Sarah Bess present.
Margaret present.
Jennifer.
Jennifer present.
Craig.
Craig present.
Allison.
Allison present.
And Stephen. Stephen giving a wave, showing he's present, and Ben also present. So we'll start off with approval of the minutes from May 24th. Wait, do I have the right minutes?
May 3rd.
Today's May 24th, right? May 3rd. Okay. Did anybody have any edits or suggestions or? Go ahead, Service.
I think they just should have been approved as amended. So I think Peter amended them because he wasn't there.
Right. So it should be to approve minutes as amended.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody find anything else or? All right, I will take a motion.
I'll move to approve the May 3rd minutes.
All right, and is there a second?
Second.
That's moved by Craig, seconded by Jennifer. There's I don't see any discussion, any interesting, so we'll start with a vote. Stephen.
Sullivan, aye.
Jennifer.
Jennifer, aye.
Sarah Bess.
Sarah Bess, aye.
Craig.
Craig, aye.
Allison.
Allison, abstain.
And Margaret.
Margaret, aye.
And Ben, aye. The motion passes with 6 ayes and 1 abstention. Sorry. All right, and moving on to public comments. Again, I don't have any public comments for you all, but as a reminder, folks that would like to send an email with their or an audio message or a video or I'm sorry, I'm all discombobulated now. Who would like to send an email message or an audio message of their public comments to the school committee can do so by emailing scpubliccomment@arps.org or by leaving a voicemail at 413-362-1891 or just by showing up here and going live. Public comment should be submitted by 3 p.m. on the day of the meeting. All right, so the next is superintendent's update.
I'll start with some positive information and then talk about some hard things. I'll start with just that today was the second day this week. There's step up days for 6th graders from our schools attending to come to the middle school. I was able to see both yesterday and today students from 2 of our elementary sending districts have a really meaningful, wonderful experience. The best part, of course, is seeing their fellow students and getting excited about the middle school experience. I want to thank Principal Sharon and everyone involved in that, making that transition work. I know Wild was yesterday, I believe today was Fort River, but I might have been Crocker, I get mixed up, but that is inclusive of all of our communities, including Shutesbury and Leverett as well, who are seeing, are part of a different district at the elementary level. So it's a particularly important trip for everyone, but I think the Leverett and Shutesbury folks perhaps get the most excited about going down the hill. So, we're excited to be able to host that. It's the first time in 3 years that we've been able to do in-person step up days. And so just want to share my appreciation for everyone involved in that effort. And the second note is that we had a high school student, CK Luang, who was fortunate, in her words, I think she's quite well earned, to be selected as one of Massachusetts' first AAPI Youth Council members, and she's been working on AAPI issues and events since last year. And as part of that participation, she spoke on May 15th at the AAPI rally on the Boston Common, talking about inclusion in the Massachusetts public school system. And she also joined on the 16th, the Asian caucus at the State House for API Youth Day. So great ambassador for our school district as well as across the state. And just want to thank her publicly for representing our district and the Asian American Pacific Islander community at the state level. We're very fortunate to have our talented students, and this is just yet another example of their great work, not just affecting things locally, but beyond. So I want to thank her publicly. I do want to talk about some harder things. I was a little late tonight because I was at the beginning of the vigil. Hard to talk about this, but I think it's worth the committee as well as the community hearing how things transpired, at least in terms of information. So I received a call in the middle of the night or early morning hours, Friday morning, I guess you could say. There was a bad car accident, high school age students. And then, to make a long story short, then throughout the night, I received calls from the fire department, who's in charge of the ambulances in the town of Amherst, as well as the police department, as more information became available. And it was a very live situation. The only person I chose to wake up was Principal Sadiq, and I want to thank him publicly for his continued work in this tragedy. And so when we got to work on Friday morning, we had some information. We didn't have full information, and anytime there's a fatality involved, all that has to go through the DA's office and the police and the fire before. We're not independent agents in communication. So we did meet Friday morning with the counseling staff at the high school, giving them some information as well as the greater faculty. We didn't have the information, nor were we able to release all of what the beginnings of what we were told. But just another appreciation is the fire department, police department, and DA's office. They communicated throughout the night, throughout the next day, and have continued. Happened to see Fire Chief Nelson coincidentally this afternoon. He was checking in on the kids who were involved in the accident and how things are going, and they showed a lot of care in that situation. Just want to share appreciation there. Once the DAs okayed it, we did send a communication out to all families, not just high school, but all families in the district, all students, and all staff members, that Sehan Islam had passed away in a tragic car accident, again, late Thursday, early Friday. There were also 5 students who were injured in the accident. Again, I don't have the ability to share all that information publicly, except to say that these are, for many of them, serious, but all of them non-life-threatening injuries for the other 5 students who were involved in the car accident. And through formal and informal ways, we've been in touch with families and trying to check in on what needs there are for those families as well. We were in touch right away Friday morning with Riverside Trauma Center. We've worked with them before. They are experts in this, and they've continued not just to be on site Monday, but to be consulting with our mental health team as well as our leadership team throughout. There's a number of decisions that need to get made about how we're supporting students and adults, and it's been great to have that resource for us. Sadly, there's a need for it, but they have a wide breadth of experience to support us with that. One of the challenges of this particular situation in terms of how to respond is all the students involved were in their senior year. And so this adds to the complexity. Things like prom, graduation are coming up very quickly, and we continue to support the students, the faculty, but also to receive advice about how to walk through those major events in our kids' lives, while honoring Sehan and honoring the students who were involved in the accident. Sunday, we had an open session for anyone who wanted to come. We had a number of counselors there. I want to thank Northampton Public Schools. They supported us with 2 counselors, both on Sunday and then all day on Monday, to make sure that we had the proper staffing that we needed. We did additional counseling sessions with the lacrosse team because Sehan was a lacrosse player. They opted to play their game yesterday afternoon wearing number 7 on their helmets. Sehan's family attended the game, and there was some level of memorial that went along with that. Today's vigil was organized by parents, the parent guardian organization, and students who knew Sehan, and they were really in charge of the show. And I think that was what I heard before I had to leave, was very personal stories that mattered to the audience. It mattered that students and faculty and adults were able to share their experience. Sehan's family was able to attend there as well. What I'll say is, moving forward, and something I said to the faculty on Monday, is people process tragic situations, and this certainly is one of them, at very different paces and speeds. So while we were gearing up and preparing for Monday, once all that information was known, it's not, quote unquote, over after Monday or after this week. And that our counseling staff, who has been phenomenal, as well as the leadership team at the high school, Marta Guevara, Faye Brady, lots of people have contributed, that we're going to have to be focusing on this moving forward. It's not a short-term kind of thing. I experienced a somewhat analogous situation when I was in high school, with loss of a friend from a motor vehicle accident. One thing I said to the counselors, I'm deeply appreciative of their work and the high school leadership team, that the supports they're offering, didn't feel the same way when I was a high school student. But the other thing I learned from that is that the pace at which people, again, will process the information, will feel grief, is not predictable. And what people are feeling isn't always what they're showing. And so we're being very sensitive, even looking at like grades for the senior class. This, some kids are finishing up, they need the credits to graduate, and providing a high level of flexibility and support so that students get through the last couple of weeks without the additional burden and stress that finishing courses might offer. So we're trying to find that right balance as well. The need for ongoing support is going to continue for everyone involved, for staff. I should note that the counseling and all that, the pieces that were in place for students were also in place for staff. One of the reason we had outside counselors there is to make sure that our counselors and our staff members who needed support had access to that as well. This is a tragedy that's not just felt by students, but everyone in the community, and it definitely was palpable at tonight's event. One thing that we've learned from experts in the area is it's really important that our students, particularly our seniors, still have those rite of passage events, and that we provide the right level of structure and flexibility, if that makes sense. But they also need to have fun and not feel guilty that they're going to have these events, prom, graduation, or one-time events for high school students. And so again, we're trying to work with students and with our faculty on that right balance. Prom is Saturday night. We are intending to have prom. Graduation is again a couple weeks away, and we'll certainly working on ways to honor Sehan, and also make sure that the experience is shared and that students get recognized for their achievements over 13 years. And so that's just being transparent. That's sort of the balance that we're trying to have. What I've experienced, I've been in the high school every day this week, quite a bit of time Friday and yesterday, a little less so today. Is that people are our community, not just the counseling staff and people whose official role, but our community is supporting one another in this. That I've seen students be incredibly sensitive and kind to one another, as well as the adults, obviously, as well. And it's something we're going to need to keep our eye on moving forward. Again, it's not a short-term type of thing. And I think, again, from the time I was at the vigil, and it's very clear how much this will affect students. And my personal experience, and I think it's true, is that it's not something that you ever get over, right? When you're connected to someone, lose someone at a young age, it is something that will be with students and adults moving forward, and we want to help them process that and think about how that process works for them, individually and collectively. So that's where we are with that one. And I think I'll stop there. Again, this is certainly what attention has shifted to in terms of district staff. Oh, no, I think there's one other thing I wanted to share. Sorry. One of the other lovely things that's happened in terms of measures, steps, there's folks have set up a GoFundMe page for Sehan and his family. But the other thing that's happened is each of the other schools have been sending care baskets for high school staff members, one every day, so that there's, Atkins is a frequent visitor to our high school. So like Fort River's doing a day, Wildwood's doing a day, the middle schools do a day, and so on and so forth. And that's been really meaningful. And it's something that frankly started when there was a tragedy in Leverett this winter. One of the things that we got some really positive feedback. Leverett was in school when that happened over February break, for those of you who don't know. And collectively we shared a care basket with Leverett staff. And it's these measures that, are small compared to the enormity of the tragedies. And they let staff members know that they're not in this alone, that yes, it's affecting the high school, but that their colleagues at other schools are in there and supporting them. And it's been very well received at the high school. So I think that's the last thing I wanted to share, but certainly I'm open to any feedback, any comments, questions that anyone has on this situation.
Yep. So does anybody have any questions or comments for Mike? So I have no update, so I'll take school committee announcements. All right, so on to new and continuing business. I'll turn that over to Peter.
All right, so Dr. Morris has his hand raised.
I'm sorry. I think given, the information I shared and the reaction, that I'm seeing, I wonder if we could take a brief break and then just have maybe a transition, even if it's 3 or 4 minutes, so that both kind of honor Sehan, but also to give the committee members who heard a lot of information and myself, to be very candid with you, a little bit of a breather before we go to regular business. If it's agreeable with the committee, maybe 8:10. We come back and we can try to resume the business that is really important and we do need to do tonight. I'm not trying to minimize that, but is that agreeable to folks?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks. I'll see everybody at 8:10.
All right. Looks like everyone is back. So I'm gonna go backwards in the agenda and give folks a chance if any school committee members have any announcements that they want to share, any subcommittee updates or anything like that. Allison, go ahead.
The budget subcommittee met last week and worked through some proposed goals that we'll bring to the full committee at a future meeting. We'll continue working on them at our next meeting, which is next week. Is that? I'm looking at Sarah Beth, Margaret, and Doug. Yes, next week on Wednesday.
Having an issue with the microphone on off thing here. So we try that again. We move on to new and continuing business and pass this on to Peter for some policy updates and a review and possible vote.
All right, so we have 3 items tonight, 3 different policies. I think they will all be very short. 2 are part of our continuing sequential evaluation of all policies, starting with the oldest. CLC last reviewed 1980 something on a couple of these. So we'll go through those, and then we have a policy that that Doug brought to Debbie's attention, and we discussed it yesterday. And there's a change that we could vote on tonight if we're ready to do that. So starting with policy CH, Superintendent of Schools policy implementation. If you read this is a very general policy about the superintendent having the responsibility to carry out the policy that's established by the school committee. It's a 40-year-old policy. It's a very general, short statement, so there's no need to archive it. The one change that the policy subcommittee recommends is that there's a phrase that says it's expected that all school committee employees and students will carry out these policies. And we thought that language of school committee employee does not really apply to modern day, and so and there's no reason to add student. Students are not directly. I mean, obviously, students are affected by general policies, but not in the same way that the district is. So the suggestion is to change. It is expected that all school committee employees and students will carry them out. To it is expected that all district employees will carry them out. So that's just a minor update change, and if we were ready to vote that, we could move to propose that as move to update that policy as proposed. The other policy, GBGC, is about employee assistance programs. These are programs that provide things like financial counseling and other related services. Back in 1987, when this was adopted, apparently these were local and opt-in. These are now provided by the state, and all school employees are eligible for them without school committee's involvement. And so there's no MASC reference policy, and so the policy subcommittee's recommendation is to archive that. And so the motion there would be to archive that policy. And then the last one is policy DN. Actually, that's a separate item under new and continuing business. So I'll just pause there so we can take care of the first 2.
Craig, go ahead.
Thank you, Peter. When you say to archive a policy, is that the equivalent of delete a policy, basically to no longer include it in the policies of the district?
For all intents and purposes, yes. It stays like on the file server in an archived policy. Like it's there if we ever wanted to reference it, that like, oh, we archived it on, May 24th, 2022, and we could go, but it's not, it would no longer be a policy active in the district.
Thank you.
Allison, go ahead.
So I had a question on CH, policy CH. I thought it was odd that it said in that first line through regulations. Because I don't know, it just seems like an odd choice of words. So I did look at the reference policy, and it says, it doesn't say regulation, it uses the word procedures. And so I wondered if we wanted to make that change, since we're making changes anyway as well. It just, regulation just seems a little heavy. I don't know, like I wouldn't call the handbook, the school handbooks or the district handbook a regulation book. So
Sure.
Anyone else? I will entertain at least one motion. Go ahead, Peter.
I will move to archive policy GBGC employee assistance programs.
Second.
Moved by Peter, seconded by Margaret. Can open it up for discussion. Seeing no discussion, I will start. Jennifer.
Jennifer, I.
Craig.
Craig, I.
Allison.
Allison, I.
Margaret.
Margaret, I.
Sarah Bess.
Sarah Beth, I.
Stephen.
Stephen, I.
Peter.
Peter, I.
And Ben, I. The motion passes unanimously. I will entertain another motion. Peter again.
Just because it's fun. I'll move to update policy CH, changing all school committee employees and students will carry them out to all district employees will carry them out, and changing regulations to procedures.
Second.
Moved by Peter and seconded by Margaret again. Open up for discussion. Seeing no discussion, I will take a roll call vote. Peter.
Sorry, Peter, I.
Sarah Bess.
Sarah Beth, I.
Margaret.
Margaret, I.
Jennifer.
Jennifer, I.
Stephen.
Stephen, I.
Craig.
Craig, I.
Allison.
Allison, I.
And Ben, I. The motion passes unanimously. On to the next one. Policy DN. Peter.
All right, so this is something that Doug brought to Deb and Deb brought to policy subcommittee. We met yesterday and we were unanimously recommending the change that was proposed. So this is about how the district deals with surplus property. And there's essentially a sequence of steps, prescriptive steps based on the value of the item. In Massachusetts, if it's above 10,000, there's a whole rigmarole you go through. If it's less than 10,000, it's a little less restrictive. But we do have a policy that says you need to first make it available to the other school and town departments, and then if there's no interest, be offered to other municipalities, and then et cetera. And the reason why this change, this highlighted change is being proposed to be introduced is that we have a student with a specialized wheelchair. It's designed for this student. It's not reusable for other students. And the student is graduating, and the family would like to buy the wheelchair, and the district would like to accommodate that. And we need this policy change in order to accommodate that. So this allows the district to make surplus equipment and items available to a student if the student in the district, if the department head and the director of finance approve it. And also that the transaction is the request is made prior to the student leaving the district. So that's it. And Doug, I don't know if you had anything else to add.
Straightforward. Craig, go ahead.
Thank you, Peter. What is the proposed change, or is this as verbatim what you'd like us to, what we may vote on?
Yeah, this is, so policy subcommittee reviewed the proposed language change yesterday. We added that it's approved, that it's also approved by the director of finance. So in this case, it would be Doug Slaughter and also Faye Brady, the director of special ed, for this particular case. But yeah, the highlighted section is the proposed addition.
Anyone else? All right, then. Go ahead, Margaret. Sorry.
I wonder if there's a typo in the second line of that item. It says the family, if they chose, should that actually be if they choose?
I think so. All right. Any other questions, comments, anything? All right, then I'll entertain a motion. Peter once again. Oh, Allison?
Oh, I was going to just make the motion so that Peter didn't have to do all three. I move that we approve policy DN as amended.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Allison, seconded by Peter. I'll open up for discussion. Doesn't seem like there is any discussion, so I'll move on to a roll call vote. We'll start with Craig.
Craig, aye.
Margaret.
Margaret, I.
Sarah Bess.
Sarah Bess, aye.
Peter.
Peter, I.
Jennifer.
Jennifer, I.
Allison.
Allison, I.
And Stephen.
Stephen, I.
And Ben, I also. The motion passes unanimously. Moving on. We have the superintendent evaluation timeline and draft evaluation instrument.
Okay.
Mark?
So the superintendent evaluation subcommittee is Jennifer, Irv, and me. And we've been working with Sasha as she's prepared the instrument for the evaluation. I sent everyone an email that had a copy of Mike's goals for this year as a reference, just so you could see what they were, and also a link to the SurveyMonkey survey. Sasha has actually created a PDF file of the survey, which we can bring up, but I guess before, does anybody want to see the goals on the screen before we talk about the instrument?
Oh, go ahead, Craig.
Just because I'm new to the committee, I wouldn't mind unless it's going to take up a lot of time, in which case anyone could offer me a recap, which would be okay too.
Craig, did you get my email? I wonder if I didn't get you on. You didn't get the email?
I don't believe so. You emailed, would it be from you, Margaret?
Yes, it would have been from me. Maybe I left you off the list.
No,
I just forwarded it along to Craig, so it should be. If it's not your-
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I did receive it. I apologize.
Okay. All right. I mean, we can put it up. That's fine.
No, I see your note saying I won't need to complete unless I feel I can. Yeah, it's always a confusing point is superintendent evaluations considering when reworks happen. It's okay. Thank you. You don't need to put them up on the screen. I can do my own.
Okay.
Yeah, Peter.
Yeah, just because Craig mentioned it, it's a good time to bring up. Several years ago, we had the question of could school committee members that had served for almost all the year but weren't on the committee at the time of the evaluation, could they participate? And could committee members that had just gotten on participate? And so we talked to council. This was back when Eric Nakajima was chair. And so basically it's very clear. You have to be on the committee at the time of the evaluation in order to participate in the evaluation. So if you got here a day before we vote the evaluation, then you are allowed to participate. And conversely, if you're not on the committee at the time, then you can't participate. So even if you were here for 10 years and you left the day before, then you can't participate. It's also, it's not only is it optional, but it's no one can take that right away from you. So if you feel like you want to participate in part of it or some of it or all of it, it's totally up to the individual member. So that was good clarification that I don't think had always been practiced in the past. And we got clarification on like 4 or 5 years ago.
Thank you, Peter. So I think we have to vote to accept the instrument. So Ben, maybe you could share the PDF file.
I can do that if it's easier for you.
Oh,
Ben.
Mike, okay, that would be great.
Peter?
So this looks exactly like the same structure that we used last year, which is great. So I just didn't know if anybody on the policy subcommittee had whether anything was changed. It seems like exactly what we've done the last few years, with lining up the goals to the elements and with the summative rating and the high, medium, low effect on student learning at the end. It seems like the same structure. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
So I wonder if there are any questions people have?
Yeah, I had one. I'm sure somebody's already seen this and caught it, but I think it was questions 3, 9, 11, 13, 19. The answers, the word proficient is in bold.
Yes.
They should
So
be either all in bold or none in bold. I would think.
yes, Sasha missed a couple of them. They're going to not be in bold. Jennifer did a really careful reading of the whole thing. I really appreciate that. And that was something that she commented and thought it, and I agree, it would be better not to have any of the categories in bold, that they all ought to look the same. So Sasha will just need to go back and catch the ones that she missed.
And then that triggered another question that I had. I think I had the same question last year, but I don't know if I asked it. But so the comment sections, you're required to comment on anything except for a proficient answer. Couldn't we just make them all required comments so we had some sort of commentary to each thing? I don't think meeting the mark. I'd want to hear why somebody thought that. Yep, go ahead, Peter.
I mean, just my opinion. I don't think it should be required. Like, unless it's required by the contract, and I'm pretty sure it's not. I don't know. I mean, I'm saying that as somebody who's commented a lot on previous evaluation. So I'm not saying it to get out of commenting, but I just know people have different styles, and some people are more comfortable just, filling out parts of it. But
yeah. I was gonna say I'm gonna personally require myself to, but go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I would obviously not weighing in on the question. The language comes directly from the DESE document, which is consistent with the same method that's on the teacher evaluation, administrator, principal evaluation, and superintendent evaluation. That's not a yay or nay as what you all should do, but it wasn't a unique Amherst thing. It's straight from their template. So that's the only context add that I wanted to add.
Thank you. Jennifer, go ahead.
And by the way, the proficient being bolded is also from the DESE template, which I thought was so odd. and from what reading through their document, my impression is that they don't want people to overuse exemplary, and that proficient is sort of like what we expect a superintendent's performance to be. So I don't know why they bolded proficient, but all of their paper forms, proficient is bolded. And I just had asked Margaret to ask Sasha to just unbold all of them, all of the choices, because otherwise it just looked odd to me. But I think Sasha just missed some of them. So I think she is going to addition, I feel like in any type of like performance evaluation, I feel like the real value of the evaluation comes from the comments, not just from clicking, you know, on a 4-point scale. So I would encourage us all to give comments on any and all of the elements, and to like plan the time and take the time and set aside time to do that when you're filling this out. And Margaret, I did have one other question.
Okay.
Which is the question that I had asked you about element 2E1 about goal 4. And
Yes.
so this is one element that applies to 2 different goals. And
Yes.
I only see it in the survey about goal 3, not about goal 4. And I think your answer was there's only going to be one question for one element, which I don't know why we couldn't just add another question for element 2E1 for goal 4. If we can't add it, then it should be added to the text of the question that element we should be considering for goal 3 and goal 4. You know what I mean?
I'm going to let Stephen and Allison comment before I say anything.
All right, so in that order, I'll take Stephen and Allison.
Yeah, so the reason that the proficient is in bold is we learned when we set this thing up while Dr. Baptiste and Dr. Appy were on the board was that because proficient is the only one that does not require a comment. So that just reminded people that they didn't need to. And for myself, I usually I do a much better job since I'm not so succinct, and my comment at the end when I can wrap it all together is much better than having me write little piecemeal things on the way down.
And Allison?
Yeah, I think you know, having done these multiple times, the comments, I think it's fine. I think you know, if there's things that we want to say, we will write them, and if not, we'll move on and sort of save the meaty feedback in the overall comments. But responding to the question about an element that is connected to 2 different goals or more than just one goal. In the past, what we have done is exactly, I think, your second option, Jennifer, which was to just state that it connects to both goals in the question text. The element is the element, so we're evaluating the superintendent's performance on that element, and so he's not sort of split personality on that element and does it one way with one goal and a different way with the other goal. So I think if Sasha can just add, I can't remember which goal numbers it was, if it's goal 3 and 4, just say goal 3 and goal 4 in the question text, that would be good.
Yes, I think that's how we've done it in the past, and I can talk to Sasha about doing that. Adding that to the single element box.
Peter, go ahead.
So do we have a proposed timeline as well?
Oh, yes. So the proposed timeline is tonight, obviously the presentation of the artifacts. Of the instrument. The 9th of June, which would be Mike's presentation of the artifacts and support. And that's scheduled to be a joint meeting with Amherst, Pelham, and the region. And there is a little bit that doesn't concern all of the schools, but I think it's brief enough that it makes sense to have Mike do one presentation and not have to do separate presentations, which will mostly apply to everyone. Proposing June 21st for the committee to complete the evaluation, which would then give almost a little over a week for the chair and vice chair to pull together all of our comments and prepare the summary evaluation that would be presented on June 29th for a vote.
And we have to vote on this tonight?
So Allison or Peter, I think that we vote on the instrument, but can somebody confirm that for me?
No, I'll take Peter.
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. There's no need to vote on the timeline. I mean, if we had spirited disagreement, I suppose we could vote on it, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who has any sort of spirited disagreement as to the timeline? Well, looks like we're in agreement. So then I would entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the superintendent evaluation instrument with the corrections or the changes that were discussed at the meeting.
Allison, you have something to add?
I'll second it, and then I have a question.
So moved by Margaret, seconded by Allison. We'll open it up for discussion. And I'll take Allison.
So can you restate the dates, the due date for the evaluation and the date for when the summary presentation will be?
Yes, June 21st will be the deadline for us to complete the evaluation. And June 29th will be the meeting to present and vote on the evaluation summary.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Just a correction, I think it's June 28th, not 29th would be the when we would vote on the summary. The 28th is a Tuesday.
I thought that a different committee is meeting on the 28th. That's not a region meeting.
I have it as a region meeting. June 28th. Actually, I have a joint meeting with Pelham, but I who knows? That's just my calendar.
Oh, I see. So that was set up as a joint Amherst Pelham Regional School Committee meeting. I don't know. And you're right, Jennifer, it is the 28th. But
when we moved things around, I think that got changed. It had a question mark about whether it would be joint. And we had talked about that they were that
not
accepting the evaluations and voting on them jointly didn't make sense because they don't have anything to do with each other. Just the artifacts would be a joint meeting.
Okay. I will check with Sasha. And I'm going to say tonight that I think the region would be on the 29th. But I will confirm that. Is that okay?
Fair enough. All right. Is there any further discussion on the instrument itself, or just the instrument? All right. I will take a roll call vote then. Sarah Bess?
Sarah Bess, aye.
Jennifer?
Jennifer, I.
Allison?
Allison, I.
Stephen?
Stephen, I.
Craig?
Greg, aye.
Margaret?
Margaret, aye.
Peter?
Peter, aye.
And Ben, aye. The motion passes unanimously. So now we will appropriately move on to future agenda planning. We have that document to pull. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
So what the next regional meeting is the 9th, as was noted. There'll be a joint presentation is probably too strong a word. I would use the word orientation to the artifact document. It's a lengthy document, and really it's just for folks to understand the structure of it, because I'm working on it now. There's over 80 artifacts embedded. So it's really just trying to orient the committee on how to understand what's being presented and what information's in there. And then then it would turn into a regional meeting. And the topics I have are 2 topics that were on tonight that got pushed because of the later start, which is a brief math update for the regional schools and track fundraising. The other item I have is we would like to bring forward a potential change in legal counsel for special education services. So again, without getting into details, those are the 3 topics that I have on there that are region specific. Certainly we could add any if folks have other ones to add.
Peter, go ahead.
So policy subcommittee will have at least a couple items. One is probably best if it's its own item, if there's agenda room for public comment policy. The region had asked the policy subcommittee to review that, and we did that at our last meeting, so we'll have that. And we'll probably have another item for similar to this evening, some minor changes or archive, depending on how our next meeting goes. So that's a couple things. We'd also talked about the possibility of discussing a transfer to the performing arts account based on what the fiscal picture was looking like at the end of the fiscal year. So I'd like to see that at some point next month.
Anyone else have anything? All right. And then, so the next item on the agenda is the warrant report. Is there anyone available to read those? Like, did our backup sign, or?
I've never received any communication about that.
Go ahead, Allison.
I believe they have to be read by the person who signed them. So unless somebody here has signed those warrants, we can't read them.
Yep. And they are not here, so move on to accepting gifts. I didn't see any gifts in board docs. Any hiding or? All right, so at this point, we'll convene into executive session. So Regional School Committee will now consider entering executive session in accordance with the open meeting law and Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, to conduct collective bargaining sessions and to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation of APEA and APAA if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares, and to approve minutes in accordance with the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 22, with no intention of returning to open session. I'll take a roll call vote. So Margaret?
Margaret, aye.
I think the motion needs to be seconded.
Oh,
Second.
right, my bad, sorry.
And I'll second it.
Right. I'm rush there. Margaret?
Aye. Margaret, aye.
Peter?
Peter, aye.
Craig?
Craig, aye.
Stephen?
Sullivan, aye.
Jennifer?
Jennifer, I.
Allison?
Allison, aye.
Sarah Bess?
Sarah Bass, aye.
And Ben, I. The motion passes unanimously. We'll now go into executive session, waiting for